Good morning. Thank you, Luis. The speakers are still having their microphones put on. Our European cooperation panel, titled Shared Strategy for the Industry of Cybersecurity, is composed by Javier López, a professor at the University of Málaga, who mainly researches on security in critical infrastructure networks. He has led more than 50 research projects. He has published numerous scientific papers in many international journals, and he currently chairs the National Network on Cybersecurity Research, and is also the chairman of the Data Protection Committee. He's also part of other national committees in this topic. Rafael Tesoro will also be with us. Welcome, Rafael. He's a program officer of the EU policies and capacity building at the European Commission. His responsibilities include leading and supervising 4 pilot projects that you all know, aimed at preparing the European competence network and contribute to the establishment of a quantum communications infrastructure in Europe. He has always worked professionally focused in leveraging digital technologies and program management, aiming to make life better for organizations and individuals. In the past, he's worked at ABM, Imacia, and Sainso.
Tenemos a María.
We have María with us. María Martín Pardo de Vera, representing the association AMETIC. She is a lawyer with more than 18 years' experience in ICT, risk management, and compliance. Her areas of expertise include corporate compliance, criminal liability for companies and organizations, anti-corruption, data protection, intellectual property, code of ethics, prevention plans, compliance mapping, indicators, and many, many others. And the last speaker invited, who is taking his seat just now, he is Tomás Castro, the president of the Cybersecurity and Advanced Technologies Companies Associations. He's also a member of the board of directors of CONETIC. He's the chairman of the Spanish Confederation of ICT Companies. He is also the CEO and general manager of Proconci. He has been awarded for his business experience in 2011. He's also been awarded for his professional career path in the industry. And now we have all of the speakers in place. Without further ado, we will start with the roundtable. First, I'll try to take some 4 or 5 minutes to make a quick introduction. European cooperation are a shared strategy for the industry of cybersecurity. What are we trying to achieve with this panel? We will try to share challenges from different viewpoints with regards to the challenges in Europe within the ECS chain value in order to have a more effective and a stronger Europe. The speakers have already been introduced. Now we'll start by talking about the main goal of this strategy. What strategy are we sharing? Well, in theory, we share the European cybersecurity strategy, which is implemented with different national strategies in each member state. And this shows that the European Union wants to provide a safe, a secure online environment throughout Europe. In order to do this, the European Union provides several tools and measures with some principles that lead this work: protection of fundamental rights, freedom of expression, etc. The first question is whether this strategy is truly shared or not. A simplified overview of the chain value in cybersecurity includes many players and actors, some of which are represented by our speakers. We have the government, the public administration, we have a representation from the European Union here, and then on a lower level we have clusters or business associations, both niche or more general, representing all sorts of companies, manufacturers, software, hardware manufacturers, integrators, service providers, etc., all of which are necessary to be able to provide the services on the right hand of the screen for a sophisticated demand by the population. The population is indeed demanding certain services and products that we must provide. There is knowledge as well. We have the president of RENIC, who is representing this sphere of knowledge and information. And we also have other players such as investors, capital investment companies. I would like to mention the so-called win-win, the third alternative. Things have to be shared in order to achieve our goals. And sharing means having an agreement. An agreement in which both parties win, a we-win agreement, because otherwise it's not going to be successful. In order to have a shared strategy and a shared tactic, we need to feel vulnerable, we need to open to discussion, and we need to learn how to listen with empathy, which is something that we don't quite always do.
No hay más del 5% de nosotros que haya tenido más de dos semanas de formación de cómo escuchar. Y ahí lo dejo caer.
No more than 5% of the population has been ever trained for more than 2 weeks in things such as listening and being empathic.
Bueno, buenos días. ¿Se oye? Sí. Antes de nada, quería agradecer
Good morning.
a INCIBE la invitación a participar
Before
en este panel
everything, I'd like to
para hablarles sobre RENIC, los antecedentes de RENIC y la situación actual.
I would like to give you some background on RENIC and some of the initiatives and activities we are involved in.
La Red de Excelencia Nacional de Investigación en Ciberseguridad.
This network was created not long ago, in 2016, so we are quite recent, and it was created precisely due to the boost of the initiatives such as INCIBE, following the directives of the digital agenda, among others. The seed of the creation of a RENIC was a study, a map of research and development of cybersecurity launched by INCIBE with the objective to know in detail what were the different groups of cybersecurity that were existing in Spain, the careers of the lines of research, and the outcome was this map we can see here, on which we can see the different regions and the research teams that were specific to cybersecurity or were interesting when it comes to cybersecurity. Actually, we saw 104 research teams that were interesting for this realm, and they were distributed as it follows. We had universities, of course, but also technological centers and research centers. In this sense, it's important to point out the focus of research back at the times, which were these 12 different topics. As you can see, it's quite a heterogeneous group, and the topics were quite interesting. As I said, this study was the seed from which RENIC was created, and it was not created at a research team group, but at an entity level. And the current members of RENIC are those ones you can see here, those universities here, and we also have Alternalia, INDEA Institute, Agraria, CSIC, some research centers of Andalusia, and we also have, of course, INCIBE and CIDETI. And the main objectives of this excellence network are to be a common thread from universities to businesses. And this is why, among the main goals, we have to foster leadership at European and international level, and also to be a transmitter between talent. I'm sure it's closer from universities, and as I was saying, to establish a connection between businesses and universities. So a part of our objectives is to strengthen the scientific excellency, and also to try as much as possible to create talent and to retain this talent, because as we've mentioned this morning, part of this talent goes away, and this is part of the national scheme of cybersecurity. Among the activities that we have currently, we have many of them, and we tend to focus on establishing relations between the research sector. We have an agreement with cybersecurity. Actually, Tomás here is a representative. We have many technological platforms. We also participate in sectoral firms, as some firms in Madrid, and especially we are quite always there when it comes to data protection law and other related topics. We are really engaged. Actually, we created this subcommittee in 2018, and we decided to create a specific committee for this. We participate really actively in EXO. We've mentioned this, and is the European organization. We have here the CTN 320, and we have 6 groups. We have now 6 different committees, as they're called, and here you can see the chart of the representation of the private companies, SMEs, and the maybe 10% that belongs to the technological centers. However, from RENIC, we bet on this committee, and actually some members of RENIC are the secretaries of 4 of those 6 subcommittees. On the other hand, As I was commenting on before, we also participate in EXO, which is the CPPP. It represents SMEs, regional departments, etc. And currently the composition of EXO is somewhat 260 members. Many of them belong to businesses, associations that have other business members, and we have also worked, as it has already been said, in the different work teams. And in a way, we have participated in a constant way during the first phase that was done within EXO, which was the constitution of the Strategic Research and Innovation Agenda, with an implication from businesses and taking into consideration the industries from the members. And we are currently working on identifying the research priorities when it comes to the future of the framework program number 9 from 2021. And I'm running out of time, and here you can see a list of the disruptive technologies that we have identified and that are implied in cybersecurity, and hence that will be a priority from 2021 onwards. Some of them are currently a priority, but most of them will be a priority from 2021. That's it, and thank you very much for your attention.
Tendremos ahora la ocasión de escuchar a María.
Now we will listen to Maria's insight.
Tienes que pasar con este. Vale. Y te van a cargar ahora la presentación. Y te van a poner ahí un contador de 6 minutos. Vale. Vale. Gracias.
Hola, buenos días a todos.
Hello, good morning to all of you. First and foremost, I'd like to apologize on behalf of our General Director, Mr. Ortiguela, because due to his agenda, he could not be here with us today, so I'm here on his behalf. I'd like to focus my intervention on 3 key points for AMETIC. As a representative of the technological and digital industry in Spain, and currently actually for this cybersecurity industry that provides solutions on cybersecurity, because we want it to be a benchmark in Spain. In the first place, we'd like to highlight our support for the European initiatives on the matter, like, for example, the cybersecurity regulations, because we think this is necessary to contribute to the construction of a single market that's strong, that fosters the trust of the consumer on emerging ideas that constitutes a good point for cybersecurity, because at the end of the day, consumers are demanding more and more security. It goes without saying that the success of any strategy needs a trust environment. Cybersecurity is precisely one of the main elements that facilitates the creation of the aforementioned trust, along with some concepts as data protection or even privacy. In this context, the European regulation on cybersecurity states 2 elements that, from AMETIC, we consider they are crucial. On the one hand, we have to empower the European Agency on Cybersecurity, and this will allow us to coordinate and to vertebrate these policies at a European level, and also to implement plans and national strategies. And on the other hand, we are going to talk about the implementation of a national brand for the certification of products that are cyber secure. From AMETIC, we value positively these initiatives, and we hope this to have a positive impact on the market, so we can have more secure TIC products. One of the other objectives of this regulation is to strengthen the European policy and to position it at United States or China level, and we want to be a reference at a European level on this matter. And from from AMETIC, we do think that this is an opportunity for Spanish businesses, and we have to take advantage of our certification system because it is known that it has a good reputation. We know, however, that reputation by itself does not generate security and safety. We're actually looking to generate security on consumers, and this is what we value in AMETIC. This is why we will provide trust to those citizens, these consumers, and they will be able to know the level of security of those products that they buy. One of the main points for AMETIC, for our organization, is that governments, citizens and companies play an important role on cybersecurity, and also to foster collaboration, and this is a cornerstone. We need to have fluid channels between administration and businesses, because up to date we have had really good outcomes, and AMETIC has been a main element, like, for example, the data protection law, among many others. The role of AMETIC as a nexus between the administration and the businesses to coordinate those attacks and to share the best practices is key. And this is why from AMETIC we mainly work to raise awareness when it comes to businesses by prioritizing the prevention to reaction. We work on activities with public administration to raise awareness on cybersecurity and its importance as an economic drive for businesses on cybersecurity. And last but not least, from AMETIC, and briefly, because I only have 1 minute left, we want to launch some proposals to administration that we think will help in this context. In the first place, we would like to defend the cybersecurity through specific training that will be something related to the current data protection law. As the previous speaker has said, we have a lack of professionals and we do not retain talent, and this is why we would like to foster the European role on the data protection law, because businesses have made a huge effort on that, and we would need to reach this agreement to create a culture security and to implement some measures that go beyond the guarantees and the different sanctions that could be established. All in all, from AMETIC, we want security not to be a break for companies and for businesses, but rather to be a facilitator. And I think I now give the floor to my fellow colleagues. Thank you very much for your attention. We now move on to Rafael.
Good
morning to all of you. Thank you very much to INCIBE for having invited the European Commission to participate in these important events. My previous colleagues have mentioned some of our initiatives, and I will try to use the 5 or 6 minutes that have been granted to me to highlight some of the most important aspects. And this is why I'm not going to talk about all of the slides. But I do understand that at the end of this session you will have a copy of all of them, so you can read them thoroughly.
Bueno, voy a empezar con el final de la intervención de Rosa Díaz,
with the last part of the intervention of Rosa Díaz. We want to go far. We don't want to be really fast, but we want to go far, and we have to do it together. And this is why I want you to be with me in these 5 minutes. Actually, it's already been 30 seconds. Well, this is a jigsaw puzzle of the different initiatives, because we know how to advance together in the EU. proof of that are the initiatives that we're doing collectively of the member states when it comes to cybersecurity in 5G networks. And this is an example of how we can work together. This consists of putting resources and mind together. As I've said, I'm not going to mention all of this. And if there's an important transparency, an important slide, is this one here. That summarizes the actions that we're doing from the EU. And we have two legislative tools. We have the ENISE directive and the Cybersecurity Act that my previous colleagues have commented on. We also have investments on research and on innovation, and we also have a part that's called Connect Euro Facilities. When it comes to R&D, 90 million euros from 2016 have been dedicated to the PPP, public-private partnership, together with our counterpart, EXO. Beyond the 2020 horizon, we have proposed, well, the European Commission have proposed somewhat 3,000 million euros that Rosa has commented on before. 2,000 millions will be directed to Digital Europe, and we also have an important ambition, which is cybersecurity, which is Europe Horizon. And this consists of 3 billion euros. It's a small amount compared to other parts of the world, but we want to work in a with co-investments. We want member states to work hand in hand with private sectors. We have talked about the ENISE agency. I'm going to mention this quite quickly. There's another quote that I'd like to mention. It's from Emma Bonino. That's a European policymaker, and she was a former commissioner. This woman said that in Europe we have two types of countries. We have small countries and countries that still don't know that are small. We have this proposal. This is a proposal of the regulation that's being negotiated by the different legislators, by the Council and the Parliament, to establish a center of competencies in research centers and to establish networks of national centers. Before going into detail, I'm going to change topics and like to raise awareness of EXO because they are doing a great job, and one of the main things they're doing is that we will publish a report of how's the current situation of cybersecurity in Europe from a research and innovation point of view. This is a report, project monitoring report, that corresponds to 2018 and these are some KPIs that are in this report. I only wanted to convey this message. Please read this report because those KPIs are important. They have been published for the second edition, so we can compare them and we can be quite optimistic. As I have a little time, I'm going to go further. I would like to do some ad of what we call the pilot. Actually, this is a huge network. We have 4 different projects on the 2020 horizon, and they gather 170 different organizations. I think we have somewhat 12 Spanish organizations, and they will come tomorrow to develop the different ideas. They will be here with you tomorrow, and I invite you to participate so that you can know a little bit more about those pilot projects. I have more information here. Here I have the number of the projects, Concordia, ECHO, and Esparta, among others. Here we have the different sectors they are tackling, and they have to do 2 things. They have to pilot the dynamics and the toolboxes that can constitute the future European network of cybersecurity, and they also have to work on the different priorities that exist. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about Digital Europe program. The 2020 Horizon, I think that you're familiar with this, right? And next year we have 7 different applications, and we have CDETI that will organize in February in Madrid a specific day for this. And this is why I didn't go into detail, but I would like to talk about Digital Europe, because the European Commission is proposing to invest 2 billion euros. For the first 2 years, these are the priority actions that we propose for this program. This program is related to everything that's not related to research and development. This is to facilitate deployment, and we will have many different tools. The first applications will start in 2021, but the main lines are under construction, and you can participate, and encourage you to participate until the 25th of October by saying what you think about this, if we maybe should spend more money on quantum cryptography, or maybe we could invest more money on this or that. It's a questionnaire, and we have open questions, so it's up to you. I think this is it. Thank you very much. Follow us on Twitter. We have a quite active Twitter account. I will be here for the rest of the day. And unfortunately, I have to go tomorrow, and I'm glad to be here and being a part of this panel. Thank you very much once again for your attention. Now we move on to our last speaker before entering the debate. So, Tomás, you have the floor. Good morning to all of you. Thank you, INCIBE, for organizing this scene to talk about cybersecurity in Spain. And thank you for inviting us to participate in this panel that goes without saying. What I want to convey are many things, but I have little time. So I think I might not be able to convey all I want. First and foremost, from the organizations that I represent, the Spanish Confederation of IT Businesses, actually that's an organization of over 1,300 SMEs, and the cybersecurity cluster that belongs to INCIBE, we have always looked for the cooperation and collaboration to launch a digital transformation for a sector that is in need in Europe, and this sector are the SME sector. Maybe this is where Europe is focusing on now, and as you can see, my colleagues have given you some ideas of what the overview is, and have talked about the competences on cybersecurity regulations, and this is why I'm not going to insist on it. What I could tell you, however, is that our collaboration in participation since 2006 with CPPP allowed us to participate in the certification framework that is launched from Europe, and with a clear idea. This is that a certificate allows to digital and technology producers to sell across Europe. And in this sense, it helps us against competitivity because they want to install their products. From this point of view, we have participated with the cluster in the work group number 1 with certification, and also in the work group number 6. And we have tried to provide some ideas in the program in which we have participated, the first seal of cybersecurity that's industry-centered. And in Spain, from this program, we have established a framework in which we have been able to work in EXO to to establish to the economic area some solutions from offer and demand point of view. Being members of this board allow us to be part of interesting projects, and one of the challenges is cooperation, and we did this actually by cooperating with a project such as Cyber Watching, a project that will be visible for all of the offer and demand sector as a national observatory, and we can know what's being invested in R&D in Europe, and we will be able to know what businesses are doing with their products. This is a project, actually I cannot go into detail, but I encourage you to look for this Cyber Watching project on the internet and participate in it. This merge of project that AMETIC is doing for the digital SMEs, that's the cluster of small enterprises in Europe, lead us to a broader cooperation when it comes to improving the digital transformation. Here you can see some figures on this slide, and these figures come from Europe, and this tells us that SMEs are still in 16% when it comes to digital transformation. It is really complicated as for today to do a digital transformation if we do not take into consideration this pillar here. So our objectives is how to launch SMEs on the digital world, and in this sense we have fostered many different initiatives, and one of them naturally consists of boosting the hubs, or the single counters, and the one that we have organized here in Castilla y León. So if you want to participate in this hub network, we will have this contact with the SMEs and with the different businesses, and especially here, because we're talking about businesses that are part of different organizations and institutions, and these are the stakeholders that will approach the certification framework, because businesses need it, they need to know this, and under the European criterion, we have to launch this hub initiative, because this has been under construction since 2016, and as for today, in Spain we have presented this at a national level in a reduced group, and we have presented it later on at a national level, and we focus on stakeholders that want to raise awareness on the importance of SMEs when it comes to the consumption on cybersecurity, to help Europe with its digital transformation. As for the figures that Europe states, we can see that we are not really competitive, because the big multinationals that come from well-known countries are more important, and they can compete better because they're based on transformation technology and they have a global approach. And this is the big challenge of Europe. This is how to do that our SMEs, because they are 85% of the industrial tissue, can be more competitive, and this is very much related to the offer and demand. We have to grow with modern tools. Here, for example, you have some details of the different barriers. What happens to the SMEs, mainly when it comes to this transformation? Well, there is a lack of knowledge when it comes to the European Union. There is a lack of awareness, for example, as well. And it is said that industrial sectors and research sectors do not cooperate between them, and logically we have to solve this, because the hub ecosystems want to establish these connections between offer and demand to actually be efficient when it comes to digital transformation. This is why we have some funds in this program, Europa Digital, Digital Europe, and I think we're talking about 9.2 billion euros, and we have to increase the trust on digital Europe, and this is the proposal exactly. Yes. And within these funds, we will try these funds to reach from these initiatives, because this certification process is worthless if we have different levels, because maybe sometimes we can have a basic level of companies, and the thing is that we have to expand this knowledge so that it can reach the different companies. And I think this is it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention once again.
Muchas gracias, Tomás. Siento tener que cortaros, pero bueno,
Thank you, Tomás. I'm sorry that I have to leave the presentations here, but we have still 10 minutes for further debate. I will try to pose questions to the audience, but first of all, I had some questions that I wanted to share with you.
The
slogan, connected industry, well, we've seen different viewpoints, the different roles in the value chain, and the first question for you is, from your point of view, what do you think about the fact that we are launching many actions in Spain, but my question is, are we really getting up on our feet? Do we really have a shared strategy? Do you see differences on a national versus an international level? You can answer any of the questions, and any of you can take the floor. Well, I mentioned some examples. For example, 5G cybersecurity, where all of the countries have rapidly reached an agreement to work together with institutions. There are other examples I could mention where individual efforts are useless, if you will. Or perhaps the example of high-performance computing. This is a very clear example of how Europe has been able to very rapidly create these kinds of centers. So I think we can do a lot when we work together and we're able to catch up and get as close as possible to our goals. There's a lot to do in cybersecurity. One of our European champions shared some figures with us. According to them, a quarter of the expenditure in cybersecurity is devoted within Europe, but there's still a big gap. I think if we work together, we can win the gold medal in cybersecurity. Can you hear me? Yes, I think the strategy is indeed shared and quite efficient. It's also competitive. There's competition. But I think that's the best of it. What we see in research is that the different European sectors may not be as lined up as possible as of now. There are shared strategies in businesses, in public administrations, in SMEs, in the research environment, but it's not the same as having the different sectors truly lined up with each other. You talked about competition between different countries. At the end of the day, the Spanish citizen is demanding the same security than any other citizens in Europe, maybe wanting to strive for improvement and do things better, but not a competition as such. Today, the challenge for the European Union is already acknowledged, but I think we have to wait a little bit until the new European legislation comes into force. Until then, we will not be able to implement the competence centers and everything that's being developed at the moment. There's a certain delay, which is dangerous because there are countries that are faster than us. Yes, but we have not stopped. We continue to work. The European Commission is still working with the different annexes, and there's a lot of work underway already. Independently, regardless of how governance is going to be in the future, the toolboxes, the working methods, and all of the dynamics are very positive. It's incredible to see what's being done at the moment here in Spain, for example. So we are moving forward. We're not just waiting for the Council or the Commission to say how all of this is going to be governed. Yes, but none of these measures can become truly real until we have the legislative framework in force. Are you talking about the schemes? Because the legislation is already in force. If you talk about the schemes, there's a series of candidates, and next year the decision will be made on which one to start with. For example, there's a very important one, which is cloud cybersecurity. I'm not saying this will be the first one, but there are different candidates, and we just need some time to set priorities. Yes, maybe it's about gaining the citizens' trust. We're talking about activities and certification and a lot of things, but if I walk in the shoes of a citizen who is the end receiver of the service, or SMEs, which stand at 16% of digitalization, all of these actions lead to greater security. And the European Union is really aiming at having more security, right? That's what the citizen really expects from the European Union. We need a dramatic change so that this citizen really has trust for the European institutions. In my opinion, we need a seal, we need a European certification that really provides for that trust. We're talking at basic levels for some products. And so, if we don't have that European framework where everyone has the same shared trust, the process is going to be very slow for SMEs to be able to adapt to the change and to adopt the necessary measures. I think a main problem will be when we talk how the information on cybersecurity certification is going to get to the citizens. We have the security agencies for maritime traffic, air traffic, food safety, etc. Not all of them have the citizen as the final or the end receiver of the services, of the measures. If we talk about food labeling, sometimes you need to be an expert to understand what the tag, what the label says. So if we talk about cybersecurity products, how are citizens going to be able to understand the certification label without having to resort to an expert? Just like when we go to a supermarket and we see the label, we try to read it, and it seems that it's not easy to understand what the label says. So in this regard, I think we still have time to be able to have the citizens and the understanding of the citizen at the core of the measures. Very often we perform a lot of activities, we launch many actions, but are we really focused on what we really need to do to harness that opportunity. Rafael was saying before that there are different observatories, also an EXO observatory. So those KPIs are very important for all of us in general, because it's going to provide us a feedback. How well or how bad are we at the moment? Javier, you are a researcher, so feedback is very important. What can you say about this? If we take a look at the KPIs that are the results of an analysis conducted by EXO, and the full document will be published soon, I think employment is very important. Employment in security is progressing very positively. This is a 2-year report, so we're talking about the data from the past 2 years. And there are other KPIs. For example, there's one KPI measuring participation of SMEs in European 2020 Horizon programs. So there's still a lot to do. SMEs are encouraged to and participate a lot in European calls. I think 20% are SMEs, but only 15% of them really participate actively in projects. So KPIs allow us to measure where we stand, but I believe that we should have a positive mindset. We have very good champions in Europe, and there's a lot to be done so that figures continue to raise positively. But we can probably not move very fast, but if we want to get far, we need to work together. There's a very little time, but I know that someone from the audience wanted to raise a question. Good morning. Two quick questions. In Spain, university research is inefficient. It's inefficient because many of them are invested in the same things. For example, there are areas in which investment is excessive, and there are other areas where there's no investment. Is there anything we can do about it? And the second question is for Europe. Henry Kissinger said that Europe is that place where nobody really truly understands each other. So what can we do in this crazy place, which is Europe, so that there truly is a joint effort to have cybersecurity champions and being able to compete with the United States? I'll try to be brief and concise. It's true that some areas don't really present a lot of needs in companies, need for knowledge, and there are other areas which are more advanced. It's hard to have researchers move from one specialization to another. But what I'm more concerned about is the fact that research may be currently undertaken about topics that don't interest the industry at all. We need research effort, but it needs to be focused on what companies really need and want. So what we can do at our association is to have a better understanding of what the industry and the private sector needs and bring that message to the research world so that research goes in line with the Spanish industry and its needs. Well, I would like to invite you to participate in a European survey that we're carrying out at the moment. Europe has to defend and increase strategic autonomy. Europe has always been a very open place. With the 2020 horizon, we have partner countries from outside of the European Union, and this has some pros and cons. As for security, there are very specific forecasts in the 2020 Horizon program, and objections to transfer of intellectual property to third-party countries are included in this program, in this scheme. So public institutions can help and can do a lot. And there's also the issue of drain brain and how to avoid it. That's why I had the jigsaw puzzle at the beginning of my presentation. It's about bringing together the different elements of the puzzle, financial resources, awareness, training, engagement, and we have to do it together. As was said before, all countries in Europe are small individually, so we can only be strong together. I wanted to wrap up with some conclusions, and if you have any other questions, you can ask them yourselves after this roundtable, because the speakers are going to be around for the rest of the day. As by way of conclusion, I believe that we have to share not only a vision but also a strategy and a tactic, including what the priorities should be. Values in Europe should be an obligation and should be the pillar of the strategy. The strategy should be cohesive and affordable and reachable. We must find opportunities of collaborations. We must, or we should, maintain a good level of knowledge with the KPIs in order to be able to make decisions. We should have an agile method to be able to provide results on a periodic basis. Results should be contundent and robust, and not only provide an approximation, but rather very concrete results. I think there's a long way ahead of us in this regard. Everything is connected. We're just a small part of the value chain. There are investors, there are other players, and we're all linked to each other. We need negotiation skills more than ever and win-win approaches. This was mentioned at the beginning of the roundtable. The base should be to seek partners. The word partner, the word associate has a lot of meaning, so we should use that. And to finish with, we need to have an end and a final goal in our minds at all times. In Europe, we have all of the ingredients to achieve our goals and to harness the opportunities. Rosa said this before. If you walk alone, you'll go faster. If we walk together, we'll get further. And talent can help you win a match, but teamwork and intelligence will help you win entire competitions. And that's it from my side. Thank you to the speakers and thank you to the audience.